Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Mike Phillips, and I am the host. This is the Leadership Toolkit. As you know, we meet each week here at 12:05 Mountain Time, 2:05 Eastern. Get connected. I have some really awesome conversations with business managers, with leaders from all over, literally all over the world, so that they can share their successes, their failures. We just have a collaborative, organic conversation so that we can bring some learning to you. We want to provide you with great value and do that every week. So I have an absolutely phenomenal guest who's a really good friend of mine, who's become a very good friend of mine on the show today. He is a speaker, an author, an entrepreneur. He is the No Excuses coach. I've got my good friend, Mr. Christopher Rausch, on the show today. Welcome to the show, Chris.
What's going on, Mike? It's great to see you, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show. And I really appreciate you. I'm just so everybody knows, I am in a small group with Chris that Chris runs, an accountability group, which has how we've gotten more and more engaged. But he does, personal coaching, and he's involved in all of these different areas and sees leadership from different people, different organizations. So I am just stoked to have this conversation today with you.
Thank you. I'm excited too. Ask me anything.
Absolutely. And I know that's how you roll, so it's going to be fun. So if you would do me a favor, just first off, if you would share a little bit more about your background, kind of who you are, some of your business or management or leadership experience, what you do, and then we'll dive into some Q&A here in just a few minutes.
Sure. Absolutely, Mike. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here with you guys. Appreciate everybody who's watching or listening on the radio or on the video. Appreciate you guys being here. My name's Christopher Rausch, and my story essentially is that I have had quite the hero's journey in my life. Back when I was 13 years old, after suffering years of physical and mental abuse with my mom, I never knew my biological father. And when I was 13, I wound up becoming homeless. Not even homeless, just actually living in a back seat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 4 dogs. And I did that for about 4 years, in and out of motels and hotels, and sleeping in abandoned vans, sleeping in garages. I tried to kill myself twice. Unfortunately, I sucked at it. Drugs, alcohol, everything you can name it. I got to be 17 years old, and I had a gun put to my head, and I told the guy to pull the trigger if he was going to pull the trigger, and he didn't pull the trigger. And then I realized, if I don't change what it is that I'm doing, I'm going to wind up dead. I'm going to wind up in jail, or I'm going to have to take responsibility for my life, leave my mother in this situation, and actually take responsibility and go out there and get a job and do things for myself. And that's exactly what I did, Mike, is I went out there and decided with the help of a great mentor of mine. He asked me, he said, Christopher, have you ever considered going back and getting your GED, which is a general equivalency diploma? And I said, no, I'm stupid. Everybody told me in my life I was stupid. I said, I don't think I could go out back and do it. Go back and make up 7th grade to 12th grade. No, that's not going to happen. And he says, oh yeah, it's not like that. It's continuation school. But anyways, I went back, got my GED. And then 12 years later, I graduated with my master's degree. And through that process, I had a great corporate stint in the corporate space, working as a director of operations. So I led multiple various teams in the operations department, had several managers reporting to me, several line staff reporting to me over that period of time, international responsibilities, domestic responsibilities. And then in alliance with that, in coordination with that, I've been a coach and a speaker for over 20 years. And so that was my side hustle. And it wasn't until I realized that myself, I was comfortably miserable, and decided that it was time for me to leave my comfy corporate job back in November 7th of 2019. After 26 years of being there, safe and secure, making great money, I took the leap and went straight into my coaching and my speaking and my podcasting and my books and everything else. And it's just been an incredible ride ever since. I live here in Southern California with my beautiful wife, who have been together for now 22 years, and my son, who's 7 years old, who's amazing. And we are the recent proud parents of 3 new kittens. So the house is full of love, and I'm ready to rock with you, Mike. Thanks.
Dude, that is awesome. Thank you. No, thank you, man. Thank you for sharing all of that. So I'm curious as we get in here, because you've had so many experiences, and I didn't even know. I know you have a book coming out. Is it sort of a memoir, if you will?
Yes, it is. It's right there. Here's the prototype. It's called "It's Just You and Me, Kid." It's a story of a mother and son survival on the streets of California. Basically the hero's journey, just how I was able to experience so many hardships, so many downtimes, yet still be the man that I am today. And that's what's in it for everybody else, is the fact that you can get past anything in your life. You just have to choose to want to redirect your perspective about it.
No, I love it. And so you are the no excuses coach. Now, I've spent some time with you, and you very much live up to the name. So how did you, at what point you said you connected with a mentor that said, hey, go back to your and get your GED, and you've recapped a lot of this, I'm sure, through your book. There's some things you just said at the beginning here that I was not yet familiar with. So I need to get a copy of the book. I knew a little bit, but not in depth. But can you pinpoint a time, like what made you decide to be the no excuses coach? What made you remove everything else and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it? Do you know what that was for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Mike. And that's a great question. It was the fact that I realized back in 2013 that I was always a people pleasing person. I was always out there trying to do what I needed to do for this person to get the result that I needed to do, what I needed to be, who I needed to be for that person to get that result. And it wasn't until that I realized that I was being incongruent that I got around people who were brighter and smarter than me. And I joined this mastermind. And I realized at that point, I was a very successful suit and tie speaker. I was speaking on stages. I was doing very well for myself. Obviously not looking like this, I was looking like everybody else.
Just gonna say.
I came off stage one time and I looked around and we all looked the same. And pretty much we're all doing the little same hand clasp and saying, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about motivation today. Do you want to get motivated? Well, motivation is an internal drive that, that kind of stuff. Instead of me just saying, if you want to get motivated, get your head out of your, what? And so through that process, I just realized that it wasn't worth it for me to have the validation and the fame and everything else if I wasn't going to be me doing it. And so I realized, Mike, that I'm a biker, I'm a rocker, I'm a smart ass. I love to use colorful language. I just want to be me. I don't want to have to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. And so that's when I had a bunch of people that were brighter and smarter than me and said, Chris, just be yourself. And like, what would that look like? What would you do? How would you look on stage? What would you wear on stage? And I'm like, you know what? I wear my bandana all the time because I hate sweating. And that's the truth. And people ask me about when did you come up with your brand? I'm like, I've worn a bandana. I've worn a hat on backwards when I had long hair, all the time when I had hair. Has it just always been who I am? So I just decided if I'm going to stand on stage, I'm going to wear my bandana so that I'm not doing this all the time. You're wearing a suit and you're doing this and you're trying to speak and it's ridiculous. And I said, I would wear my bandana. I'd wear probably blue jeans like I always do, my Vans, and probably a black t-shirt. And they said, well, why not do that? And that was back in the day when people were still wearing suit and ties and you couldn't swear when you spoke. Gary Vaynerchuk hadn't come out. Andy Frisella hadn't come out. All these other people, who are known as raw now. I was literally on the cutting edge of that. I just didn't put all of my eggs in one basket and go for it when I really should have, because all my friends were telling me, Chris, don't swear. You should wear a suit and tie. I had Les Brown, the famous motivational speaker, offer to put me on stage as if I wore a suit and tie. And I said, Les, I love you to death, buddy, but I'm not going to change who I am now. And so the no excuses thing came about as a result of me getting a coach. And we were looking at my branding and we were looking at my messaging. And she says, what got you from being that homeless 7th grade dropout to being a master's degree guy, a director of operations, all these things? What did that for you? And I said, number one, I never gave myself any excuses. And number two, I never stopped. So that's it. I took imperfect action after imperfect action after imperfect action. If I didn't feel like it, I still did it. If I didn't want to do it, I still did it. If I knew that it was going to produce the result, I did it. And guess what? After I got the result, I realized it was worth the effort. And so I started reprogramming my mind to say, wow, even if the internal voice tells me, oh, it's too cold, or I don't feel like it, or I'm not strong enough, or I'm not this, just do it anyway. Because that's the way you're going to change that belief system in your head, is to sit there and say, no, I don't care if it's cold outside. I'm still going to go to the gym. And it's amazing what it is that you can do for your self-confidence and your courage and your discipline when you stop listening to that little voice in your head. So yeah, no excuses, unstoppable, kick-ass. That's just all the way I associate my vibrational energy to be able to make the life that I have for myself now. And now, as a result, when I was coaching, I just realized I didn't want to do the fluffy stuff. Like my little tagline is, I help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. I'm not going to sit there and say, meditate and go, and picture your red Corvette in your driveway and it'll show up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, light candles and go ping with your thing. And now I'm not making fun of that stuff, because God's honest truth, Mike, is in the last 5 years, I've been so exposed to this stuff that I do incorporate that now, like meditation and chakras and energy and stuff like that. It wasn't for me then, but it is for me now. But the crux of it was, I just realized that if people just stopped with their excuses, they would start with their process and their results.
So you said, stop the excuses and start with the process. Stop with the excuses and start a process. And then you said several times, never give up, just do it anyway.
Yep. I literally have these wristbands that I sell. Mm-hmm. One of them, it says unstoppable on one side. The other side says no excuses. The other one that I sell says believe. And also it says no excuses. But the believe part The belief part is all about, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that the hard work and the effort and the determination is going to be worth it. You have to believe that no matter what happens, you're going to survive and you're going to conquer and you're going to thrive. Because when you look back on your life, and I invite all of you guys listening to this, think about this. You have survived 100% of the things that you've been through. You have survived 100% of all the downtimes. You never give yourself enough credit for the things that you survived and the things that you endure and the things you tolerate right now. You are amazingly strong. And so it's just a matter of deciding that you're not going to listen to that little voice in your head anymore and get with that program. Find a bigger why, you have a bigger how.
Okay, so let me ask you a few questions, because man, dude, here's one of the things I love about you. I love this in your coaching sessions. I love this in the one-on-one times that we've talked. When you get fired up, you go like 90 miles an hour, and you're like, "Oh,
I'm trying not to. Honestly, I can go very fast, but I'm in my brain saying, "Chris, don't talk too fast." Thanks.
And one of my buddies who runs a YouTube channel, Leadership with Mike, he and I connect, and he often catches the show. He said, "Loving this." He says, "I like this guy." You get the thumbs up. So
hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mike Ashley is phenomenal. So I want to slow down for just 1 second.
Okay.
And I don't know which one of these questions I should ask first. And I think I'm going to ask this one just because you just touched on this. You said, okay, well, you just have to believe in yourself. And speaking of which, because you brought up, hey, you sell this, for anybody who's listening, if you're watching, first off, make sure you share the show, because Chris is going to bring massive, massive value. So throw some thumbs up on it. Share this show with someone that's going to need to hear it, because he's absolute fire. He's positive mindset. That he in real life is just how you hear him speaking right now. And if you want to connect with him more, make sure you go to noexcusescoach.com. I need to make sure and say that, especially if people are listening on the podcast, so you can check him out there. So here's my question for you. Because you said, hey, at some point I had people that were brighter than me, smarter than me. I think, lots of times our subconscious knows, but we need that outside validation, right? We need somebody to say, hey man, you've got this. So what are 2 or 3 tangible things? Because I try and I like to make lists. I like to make processes. What are a couple or 3 tangible things? If someone's going to seek advice, what are a couple or 3 things that they should look for in a coach or somebody that they should be asking for advice from?
I love that question. I've not been asked that question in quite a long time, Mike, and I've been interviewed quite a bit. So thank you for that. 3 pieces of advice when you're seeking out a coach or you're seeking out some professional input. Number 1, the person's got to have had experience. There's so many coaches out there. The personal development and the personal growth industry right now is shit. It's a farce. There's so many con artists. There's so many incongruent people. That's why I became the No Excuses coach. It's another reason why I came it, because I just got sick of being associated with all the fake people. I thought everybody was in personal development and personal growth to make a difference in the world, but I found out there was a bunch of con artists out there, and some of them are very big names, which I'm not going to repeat. But let me just say, there's some big people out there that are not what they say they are. I have seen them. True. They have very big names. They have series of books out there. Something has to do with dinner and soup, and I don't know. And there's there's all sorts of people out there. It just seem a little bit different. You know what I mean? And so I believe that you have to get somebody who has had experience in what it is that you want to do. So if you want to become a speaker, find somebody who has not only been a speaker, but who is speaking on stages today. There's so many people out there that are teaching you how to become a great speaker, but you go look on their Facebook profile and they haven't spoken in the last 2 years. And so that to me says, okay, I want to see what's going on in the industry today. So you got to be with somebody who is staying up on what it is that they need to be doing. Number 2, you'll find somebody who has personal referrals. So for me, I don't do any business with anybody that does not get referred to me. So I will reach out to my core people. I'll reach out to Mike. If I know your technology, hey, Mike, I need somebody who can do a website. What do you think? Okay, I've got this guy. He's an amazing guy. Okay, cool. Can you turn me on to 3 people who have worked with him? Do your due diligence when you're especially when you're working with a coach or a mentor or that type of situation. You're buying a product or service. Really do your due diligence and find out, number 1, are they the real deal? Number 2, do they come with referrals? And what was not only the referrals, but ask specific questions. How would you take a person that has had PTSD for 47 years and take them and groom them to be an entrepreneur? What would be the steps? Like, interview the coaches, interview the people that you're going to be talking with, because that's what I do as a coach. I don't take everybody. I interview my potential clients because I want to make sure it's a fit. I want to make sure that they're not just, everybody's telling them to go get a coach and like, okay, I need a coach. Okay, let's talk about your excuses. I don't have any excuses. I don't have that. Okay, you're not my client, because you're not going to get real and raw with yourself.
Own it, man.
You got it. Yeah, you got to sort of own it, right? Oh, hey, I'm in a messed up situation. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to be. Here's the 5 things that I think that I need to have. Can you support me with those things? And I think that's really what it's about is do you resonate? Do you really resonate? So I've turned down coaching clients plenty of times. I've had people get upset with me. They're like, I don't understand why you're not accepting me. And I'll tell them the following reasons. I'll be honest with them. And so for me, it's a connection thing. It's an integrity thing. It's a values thing. It's a trust thing. So I think that if that helps.
Yeah, I think those are good. And just to sort of recap what I'm hearing you say, the three things that I took out of it, or sort of 3.5, right? You had 1, 2, 2.5, and 3. A couple things you said, they have to have experience. And Mike Ashley put this up when we were talking. He says, yeah, so many 20 somethings with 40 years experience. We see
20,
that right now.
20-year-old relationship coach. That's what the hell is that?
So they got to have experience. They got to have personal referrals. This was step 2.5. You said you got to ask questions. You got to interview people. I think so often it's easy to get wrapped up in a social media society that we go, yeah, that coach looks shiny and new, and oh, let's connect and let's do this. And you get inundated with emails, you get inundated with texts, you get inundated with social media advertising. And so at some point, that branding, you start to think becomes real, right? And branding is not real. Like, yeah, branding may get you in the door, but I think that was really good that you said you got to interview them. So that was step 2.5 for me. And then the third one, and I think that's so powerful, is do you connect? Do they resonate? And so I think that's, just really solid for anybody who's out here. And that's one of the things, if you are a leader, if you are a manager, or you're in leadership in an organization, even if you're in the middle of an organization, you're wanting to move up, take what Chris is saying to heart. That, and I've said this before on many shows, I think oftentimes as leaders, we get viewed as, well, they've got all the answers, right? That's why they're in that role. And the most solid leaders that I know are willing to remain teachable. They're willing to have their ego bruised a little bit to say, hey, what do I need in this? What can I search for so that I can grow myself, so that I can affect the team, so that I can affect the company, so that I can move myself from where I'm at to where I want to go. And you gave a really good foundation there with having experience, asking questions, and interviewing. And, more than anything, do you connect with people? So I think that's really good. Yeah, absolutely. I think here's another question. And I thought about asking this one first, because you were saying, and you have the armbands, you've got to believe, no excuses, and those sorts of things. You said you have to believe in yourself. You have to make sure that you continue going, never give up, do it anyway. You said a lot of those things, early on in the conversation.
Yeah.
Do you have some steps, or do you have some advice for somebody that might be questioning themselves in that arena? How do you, because it's easy to say, like, well, just believe it, right? Believe it and you can achieve it, right? Napoleon Hill and so forth. But do you have some advice or some steps? This one, I don't know if you can break down to steps of how do you start to believe that? How do you start to believe in yourself? Maybe when you don't feel that anybody else does, or when you're questioning it.
No, that's a great question. I mean, it really is. There's a couple of different ways I could go with this. And for me, the thing that comes to mind the most is taking that imperfect action, right? We think about a lot of, let me just preface this. A lot of how we believe about ourselves happens between 0 and 5 years old. So a lot of our beliefs about ourselves, the negative connotations, sorry, I can't talk today, being interviewed. The negative connotations going on in our brains is a result of the psychological situations that we experience from 0 to 5, because we were so young and impressionable. We didn't have the emotional intelligence wherewithal to be able to understand what was happening to us. And you think back in the younger generation, I'm a Gen X. So when I was growing up, a lot of negative reinforcement was the type of training that we did. And so what we have to do in order to have that confidence, in order to have that belief, is we have to reframe our perspectives and our beliefs about what has happened in our past. So if we were made to believe that we were stupid or not talented or anything else, we need to rewire that and sit there and say, okay, let me consider the source. And my mother was very abusive. She was physically abusive, mentally abusive, verbally abusive, everything you could possibly see. And it wasn't when I really started realizing and doing the work on myself, I realized that I'm taking a belief system from a woman who has various psychological disorders, drug chemical dependencies, and all these different things, and who herself had a messed up childhood. So should I really be taking her beliefs and her thoughts and her opinions of me as gospel? No. No, I can recreate my own beliefs. And the reason the way we do that is we take that action, because so many times we think about that perfection, right? Oh, everything's got to be perfect so I don't piss off mom and dad, so I don't upset my teacher, so I don't upset my wife, so I don't upset my boss, so I don't upset my coworkers, so I don't upset my friends. I have to do all these things, right? It has to be perfect. I'm not going to let it go because I don't want to be judged. Stop thinking that way. Instead, take imperfect action every single day. We know how interest works in a bank. You put the interest in, the principal goes in the interest, and the compounds upon itself. The same thing happens with your confidence. When you sit there and say, oh, I really want to feel better and I want to look better, but I don't feel like going to the gym, and you give yourself all these different excuses, take that imperfect action every single day to get up and put your shoes on and go to the gym for 5 minutes and go do that. And as you do that, it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be immediate. But over time, as you continue to take that imperfect action, what's going to happen is you're going to find your confidence starts to increase. Wow, I did a bunch of stuff this week I said I didn't feel like doing, and I felt great after I did it. Oh my God, I thought it was going to be so much harder to do this thing, but it was actually easier. I'm so glad I did it. Oh, what else can I possibly do? And all of that builds upon itself day in and day out. You got to sit there and realize that you're giving yourself so many excuses. Oh, I don't feel like getting up and going to the gym. It's too cold. My bed's comfortable. Who cares? What are you going to gain by staying in your bed another hour? You gain absolutely nothing. But what can you gain when you sit there and say, nope, I'm going to sit up and I'm going to put my shoes on. I'm going to go to the gym right now. I'm going to go outside for a run. When you start doing those things and taking that imperfect action, guess what? You start to build your resiliency. You start to stop the excuses. It's too cold out there. I don't feel like it. But do I feel like the results? Yes. Okay. I'm not going to listen to that little chatterbox that's going on in my brain trying to keep me safe and certain and comfortable. I'm going to go out there and do the thing that I know that I should do because I want the result on the other side of it. Right? So many people say they don't want to die young, but yet they're putting garbage in their mouth. They're not taking care of their health. They're sodas and drugs and alcohol and all this different stuff. You got to be congruent with yourself. If you say you want to live a long time, but yet you're punishing your body and your mind, what is that going to do for you? So here's my core thing that I tell people. I tell the 5, right? Here's a benchmark to see how you guys are doing. Hydration, nutrition, sleep, exercise, and vitamin D, right? So hydration, making sure you're drinking at least half your body weight in ounces of water. You guys can see me drinking my water. I'm 210 pounds, so I drink 105 ounces of water a day, right? So half my body weight in ounces of water. Consult your doctor. I'm not a doctor. But what happens is people don't drink water. And guess what? Your body's like 80% water. So when you're dehydrated, you feel like crap. You don't want to do anything. So you go to your short-term gratification. You're pissed off because you do that. You beat yourself up and you go continuing doing that. And you take a vacation once a year to run away from your life so you feel better. And you go back and you go do the same thing over and over again, hoping, wishing, and praying that someday something's going to change. Does that sound familiar?
Absolutely.
Hydration, nutrition. Like put good stuff into your body. You don't have the money to do it right now, but you have the money to pay your co-payments and getting on these prescriptions. I'm 55 almost next month. I'm seeing all my friends who either took care of themselves and then stopped or never took care of themselves. And now they're on 20 different medications, are on a medication for a medication for a medication. They're bloated, they're overweight, they don't feel good, they're miserable, and they're just frustrated. But I'm like, okay, you got to unwind all that. Right? It may take you 3 or 4 years to unwind it, but you're going to unwind it and you're going to feel better and you're not going to be on all these medications. So the nutrition, sleep. I track my sleep, my Aura ring, getting deep sleep, looking at your circadian rhythms, all that good stuff. Vitamin D. If you're not getting vitamin D or if you're not getting sunshine every single day, that can cause depression. So take care of your 5, take care of that. Start talking better to yourself, start eliminating your excuses. And guess what? You will become more confident.
Love it. I love all of it.
Go on
man.
forever.
I believe me, I know you could. And it's awesome because that's actually something that you shared with me. That's something I put on my daily list, as you know, is that, hydration, nutrition, sleep, vitamin D. What was the 5th one? It's
exercise.
Exercise. Yeah, I know that all too well. So
what's your excuse, Mike?
No, I'm doing it, man. I am doing it. Actually, I don't have an excuse for that one. My only excuse is my wrist hurts, my back hurts. And then you paired me up with somebody that said, oh, no, here's your accountability partner. And she's actually texted me earlier this morning.
Nice.
So kudos to Mariana. Shout out to her on this show. So as you're talking about taking imperfect action, let me ask you something. And I know you'll be real and raw. You said, ask me anything. What can you think of a time that you took some imperfect action that it was a complete flop, that you're like, well, that was a fail, that sucked, and it did not work out? And if or when, because people that are really good leaders should be taking those chances. They should be taking the imperfect action like you're talking about. And you got to take some risk.
Yeah.
So, what's a time maybe that you could share with us that you did that? And then what did you do to overcome that? What would you recommend people do? Because it's easy to sit on a show like this and say, yeah, you go take this imperfect action, then you start to feel good about it. And you're like me very much naturally, like yeah, it's that positive mindset. So, if you work out for 5 minutes, that leads to 15, leads to 30, you feel better about yourself. We talk a lot about the positive, but what happens when the positive doesn't happen? How do you
Then,
approach that?
then you grow. Oh, I love that, Mike. Yeah, I've had so many failures in my life. Jesus, it's been amazing, and I'm thankful for each one of them because through those quote unquote failures, I call them learning opportunities. There was growth and there was knowledge, and so I could tell you about a time. It was back in about 2014. It was after I joined
Okay.
this mastermind. And the leader of the mastermind was like, everybody needs to do events. You all need to be doing events, like whatever it
Okay.
is your specialty. I'm a professional speaker. I'm a mindset guy. I could do rah events and personal development events. I could do leadership events, whatever it is, relationships, stuff like that. And so he kept pushing us and pushing us. And so I sat there and I said, okay. And I bought banners. I bought the pull-out banners, my pictures on them. I did the 10 by 10 banner, the walk in, the step and repeat, which is in my other room, got all the logos on it, did all this stuff. And then I had my first event, my first
Okay.
1-day event, the Kick-Ass Unstoppable boot camp, I think it was. And hustled, got about 25 people to buy tickets. It was great. Got in there, had a blast, had a videographer do it, and had a great time. That was a success. In my mind, I thought, okay, if that was a success, next time I do it, I'm going to have 50 people show up. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to do bigger things. And this is the way it's going to be. I hustled just as much. I reached out to so many people. I called the event. I dated it. I gave plenty of time. I did everything I was supposed to do. And I sold one ticket. And I could not understand it. My ego, my heart, everything about it was devastated. I was like, why? I had all these people and these people were referring people. I made it still ridiculously affordable, but for whatever reason, I did not sell those tickets. And when I started analyzing it, I started thinking about, okay, it wasn't me. It was this guy that was having me do these events before I had the following, before I had the other steps in place. I did not have a large enough following. So when you think about it, if you have a couple thousand people who know you and follow you and you're looking to fill, a 20-person event, the odds are better. But if you only know a couple of hundred people at that point, social media was still relatively new. I didn't have my following yet because I just recently I just became the blue collar guide to life. That was kind of the thing. I was helping blue collar people when I first really started out in that after going from the suit and tie thing. And so for me, that lesson, that opportunity was like, because I took that imperfect action, I got to experience that success. I got to taste that, but also then I got to step back and realize that just because you have that momentary success doesn't mean you get to rely kind of on your laurels in a way. And so I realized that I need to make a deeper connection and that people just weren't going to flock to me just because I'm Christopher Rausch, just because I'm the no excuses guy, just because I'm this. I need to go out there and make those personal connections with people, develop those relationships, help serve them, over deliver. And then when I have an event, then they'll show up. And so now I haven't done another live event since I tried to do the second one, but I've done plenty of successful online events. So it was a way to transition it. But those opportunities, those downtimes, those are the great moments in my life, because when I look back on them, I don't want to repeat them, but all of the lessons that happen within those helped me become the man I am today. And so we need to all look at that, and we're all going to survive 100% of the things that we go through. So stop worrying about it, because the only thing we can do is we either look through life in one of two lenses: the lens of love or the lens of fear. And so many people are looking in the lens of fear, like, oh, I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of success, and I'm self-sabotaging, I'm doing all these things. Love yourself, love the moments that you're doing these things in, and realize that it's all preparing you for what's next.
So how do you overcome the fear part? Because again, it's easy to say, and you could go back to say imperfect action. So if I said you're not allowed to say imperfect action,
no, I can come up with all sorts of things. Fear.
What else can you go after? Because we've all heard it, right? False evidence appearing real, forget everything and rise, and all these other things. But like, fear is a real thing. I'll be straightforward. There's still times I experience it. I'm going to go do this thing, and I've had to help myself or my daughter, like when she goes in gymnastics, she's getting ready to go do an event and she gets all nervous, and we associate that nervousness with fear. And so one of the things I've done is I say, well, reframe it, right? The excitement has the same physical respondents physical responses as fear or nervousness, but how if you realize, hey, I'm really fearful to do that. I'm really fearful. You've heard the Steve Harvey speech where he talks about jump, right? You know,
Mhm.
you got at some point you got to jump, and we're talking to people and leaders. You got to make that move. Managers, you got to make that move. You got to jump. You have to make decisions in business and so forth. And yes, there's something to be said about imperfect action, but even before that imperfect action, if somebody is experiencing questioning themselves, if they're experiencing that fear, what would you tell them to do to help push them past that?
Mm, that's a good one, Mike. I'm gonna be a smart ass first, and then I'll be a
Absolutely.
wise guy next. Write this down, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm writing.
GGOOGLE. And then when you type in Google, then type in how to overcome my fear of blank, spiders, intimacy, public speaking, whatever it might be. And then read the things that come up and then do the things that you read and then analyze. So I mean, really, honestly, there's. I mean, I'm being facetious, but it really is. You have to take the. I mean, the answers are there. Like we have these cell phones, we have everything. The answers are there. It blows my mind, Mike, when people say, "Oh, I'm having money problems, and I just can't get my finances in order, and it's been like this." And I'm like, so tell me in the last week, what strategies have you Googled using ChatGPT or Google to find out solutions to your situation? What have you applied, and what have you learned? Oh, Chris, I don't understand any of that financial jargon. Okay, great, cool. Who have you called that's an expert that could possibly walk you through it? Oh, I can't afford that. Okay, then stay miserable because there are solutions out there. And so when you think about this, there's a great book out there, How to Overcome the Fear, How to Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It's by an author named Susan Jeffers. Susan Jeffers, How to Feel How to Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I've got the book up on my bookcase. Phenomenal. And it really is about, okay, asking yourself that deeper question. For me, it's all about the root cause, right? I'm not going to deal with the symptom of a situation. So when you start digging that deeper, you keep asking why. I think it's like you ask why 5 or 6 times. You keep going down to that. Why am I afraid? Why am I insecure? Why am I feeling anxiety? Okay, because I'm nervous. Okay, why am I nervous? Because I'm going to be speaking in front of people. Okay, why am I nervous in front of speaking to people? Because I'm afraid I'm going to be found out as a fraud. Okay, why am I afraid about being found out as a fraud? Oh, because I've dealt with things of imposter syndrome. Okay, and keep going down there and keep going into that why. Okay, so why is it that you're not going to do this? Why is it that you're not going to do this? Because of some unsubstantiated opinions or assumptions in your brain about people judging you? What would it feel like if you actually knew you did the preparing for what it is that you're doing and you actually visualized in your mind it going successful and actually doing some testing on that and actually practicing your stuff and actually getting a little bit of confidence going on before you go actually out there and do that situation? Because the fear, like you said, it's just a matter of perspective. I've been in lines of roller coasters where the people in front of me were excited. Oh my God, we can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to put our hands up in the air and da, da, da. People behind me, oh my God, it's so tall and it goes so fast and it looks so steep. And oh my God, I'm so scared. Same situation, just a different perspective, which I like what you said. So really, it's just asking that deeper why, and then realizing that, is that realistic? Is that truly realistic?
That's a good
Or
question.
actually people in the audience rooting for me? What if I had the belief that when I step on stage, everybody in that audience is rooting for me? Right? So it's all about reframing that perspective. But the biggest thing on this, Mike, and this is the God's honest truth, is get somebody in your life who has done or is doing the thing that you want to do and have them mentor you, have them coach you, have them hold you accountable to take those daily progressive steps. And as you do that, you will develop that courage and that confidence and that resiliency to realize that the fear is unsubstantiated. And at the end of the day, do you want to get to the end of your life and regret all the chances and all the things that you didn't take? Or do you want to get to the end of your life and go, man, I made so many mistakes and so many failures and screwed so much stuff up, but I had a blast doing it. And look at where I've gotten in my life. That's the thing.
What
You
a
got to think with the
ride.
end in mind and work backwards.
No, that's really, really strong. There's a few things that you said that I would just want to backtrack to for a minute. Like that question that you asked, when it comes to fear, when it comes to all of these things, we will, as humans, it's human nature, we'll say worse shit to ourselves in here
Oh yeah.
than we would ever let somebody else say to us. And so
100%.
that question you said right there, is that realistic? That is a really strong question. I think if for everybody that's listening or watching, write that down. Is this realistic? And you should be asking yourself that when things start to come up, when you start to, you brought up imposter syndrome, you brought up earlier imperfect action and the tongue in cheek, Google it, right? But there's so much to be said for that.
There is. I mean, people don't take that responsibility. You got to do the R word, ladies and gentlemen. You are the people that got yourself into the situation. You can't blame everybody else. You can't expect people to come save you. You need to do the work. And guess what? If you're 40, 30, whatever it is, give it some time. I tell people, if you're in kind of a messed up place, give it 3 years. Give it 3 years. Really dig deep and go through that work and start taking care of those 5 and getting around the right people and stop tolerating some stuff. Have a bigger vision for yourself and look on the other side of where it is that you're at. And it's going to suck and it's going to be tough, but on the other side, it's going to be so worth it. And either way, you get started today or you get started 6 years from now, the time is going to go by. So why not get started today and develop that and lead by example, especially if you have kids, because people are going to be watching you and they're like, hey, look at Chris, look what he's doing. Look at Micah, look what he's doing. Look at Mariana, look at what she's doing. Oh my God, what are the secrets? Oh, she's got an accountability group. Okay. Oh, wow, they got this. Okay, cool. I want to do that because success leaves clues. But the people out there who just bitch, piss, and moan about things and never do anything about it, I feel sad for them. And I wish those people well because they're not in my life.
Well, the thing is, if you're going to complain about it without taking any action, imperfect action, Googling it, doing it like that, one of the big things, and I don't think there's a lot of people that would choose to listen to this show that will be that way, simply because most people that are wired or are either trying to learn leadership or are wired for leadership, they're solution oriented, right? They're seeking the solution. It's like you said several times, like you fail forward. I made a mistake. I screwed this up, but what was the opportunity? What was my chance to grow right here?
Yeah.
And I think those are all really, really good questions. And like I said, at the onset of the show, like you're so high energy, I can't help but get swept up in it. And I'm trying to sit here and think, okay, well, what was, cause you've said a few things I wanted to ask other questions on, and then we keep going and I'm sitting here just listening and I'm like, oh man, that's so good. I got to write that down too. So
I love to do it. I love just sharing people. I mean, I've been through so much stuff in my life and I'm just passionate because I look at it this way. If we all take care of ourselves and love ourselves, and I found out through COVID, my gift to people during COVID was giving them free coaching sessions, just my way of giving back. I didn't do any sales. I didn't ask anybody, hey, you want to join my program? My way of giving back, helping people get through tough times. And about the 5th one, Mike, I heard God, source, universe. I heard this little whisper that said, ask him this question. And I'm all about asking questions. I have questions that I ask myself. I have questions I ask my clients. I have questions that I ask my guests. I have a list of questions because I love questions. Because when you ask the right question and you're honest with yourself, you can't help but take action on that, right? You think about that. You gotta ask those questions and take that action and ask ourselves, right? When will I have had enough? When will I have had enough of this? Because you're going to continue to tolerate those things. And so I invite you guys out there. One of the best things you can do for yourself that doesn't cost any money. I'm a firm believer in pads. So I get these little Amazon pads. I get a group of them, probably like 12 of them for like $10 or whatever it is. So I love to write things down and I write down what I'm tolerating. So ladies and gentlemen, and you might know, about this, what you're tolerating from yourself, what you're tolerating from others, and what you're tolerating from inanimate objects. And as you sit there and you list those things out, be honest. How many things are you really tolerating from yourself? How many things are you really tolerating from people at your job, in your house, and your friends? And, oh, these people take advantage of me and these people do this. Inanimate objects. Oh, the dishwasher sticks. Oh, the mirror's cracked. Oh, this is my brake pedal doesn't, whatever it might be. All that stuff you're tolerating is taking energy and it's sucking it from you and it's draining who you are. When you write these things down, ladies and gentlemen, you find, hey, listen, if I eliminate a third of the things that I'm tolerating, because some things are just a fact of life, but I eliminate a third of the things that I'm tolerating, might I have more energy? Might I have more time? Might I have more space? Might I have more help? Right? Stop tolerating the stuff that you're accepting from your family members and get busy delegating. Like, make sure your kids are sorting their laundry and the kid, the husband's helping make it, assign responsibilities and duties and free it up for yourself. And as you do that and you take that ownership for yourself and you stop talking negatively to yourself, that all combines to build that self-confidence and that resiliency.
That's all really good. I wrote all that down. That leads me to a really good question too. And where you said, hey, what am I tolerating from self, others, outside sources, or inanimate objects? I think oftentimes as leaders, we tolerate a lot from ourselves. We often will, we put so much on our own shoulders. Leaders and entrepreneurs, right? They take so much on. Entrepreneurs are the only people that are like, dude, I want to get out of the 40-hour work week just so that they can work 120 hours, right? And so there's so much that we take on. And you at the end of this just said, well, it's important to delegate. How do I know? Because I've been completely guilty of this, where it's like, hey, I've got to do that thing, and we'll just give it to me. I'm that type A personality. I can handle it. I can do it. I'll do this, and let me produce this. How do you know when to delegate at something, and who should you delegate it to? I'm curious what your thought is on that.
That's a very interesting question, Mr. Phillips. How do you know when to delegate? I think that's going to be a personal preference for most people, again, based on that conditioning, because some kids like are middle kids and they helped out their brothers and sisters and stuff like that. So they're just natural tendencies to help. But I believe it's when you realize that there is an inequity in between what it is that you're doing and the rest of the family's doing, or the rest of your team is doing, right? If you're taking on too much and you're doing that and everybody else is getting a break and you see that disparity, that's the time to sit there and say, okay, why am I allowing this? Why am I allowing it? What is it that I'm trying to gain by taking this all on myself, rather than dealing with I don't want to deal with it. I want to delegate it. It's going to take me too long to train them. It's faster if I just do it. I've heard every excuse in the book.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Absolutely. It's easier for you to do it because you've been doing it for 20 years. Might it be okay to release some of those expectations for it having to be done that way and allow the opportunity for that person to train in that and become better at it so that you don't have to deal with it? Because you're going to have to invest some time. And I get parents to do this with their kids all the time. It's like, okay, what would it be like if your 14-year-old could help make the lunches for the 3 and the 5-year-old, right? Oh, they're no. Because you're going to teach them about responsibility. You're going to teach them about life. They may not want to do it, but they're going to do it. And guess what? As everybody starts to chip in, then you start to realize the power of that. And initially it's going to be uncomfortable I was the same way as you were. I was like, okay, bring it on. I can do it. I can keep all the plates spinning. And I did. And I did until guess what? Until I didn't. And guess what?
One too many plates.
One too many plates. And then it was like, what's wrong with Chris? What's wrong with Chris? What's wrong with Chris? Why can't Chris do all these things? Oh, we can't give Chris anymore. He's too stressed out. Then it became a whole negative situation because I put it on myself to be this all-star person. And then when I couldn't take on one more thing, I was like, well, Chris has got a bad attitude. So sometimes when we take on too much, that's a detriment to ourselves as well. But knowing when to delegate is to realize, okay, who can I empower in this situation? Who can I make feel like they're a part of the team? Because so many times they say that they want to do things, but people want to be made to feel inclusive. So how can you make people feel inclusive? How can you get them bought on their own to want to come help? Hey, I've got this. Hey, can I get some feedback from you? I've got these things going on. I've got a bunch of websites and stuff like that. What are your ideas that perhaps I can do to streamline it? Oh yeah. Sure. Have you tried this, Chris? Have you tried this, Chris? Have you tried this? Oh, hey, I'm an expert at that, Chris. Maybe I could do something for you. Oh, wow. Can you check that out, Mike? I'd really appreciate that. Right. Sure. So for me, when I got comfortable being uncomfortable, asking for help, and my coach made me do this, she made me reach out to people like, back when I was doing my group coaching program, which was something we were working on in 2019, she had me reach out to people and ask them for referrals. She goes, I want you to reach out to 5 of your closest warm leads in your business area. And I want you to reach out to them and say, hey, listen, I'm doing this thing. Can you please refer 5 people? You know what the bomb I am. And can you do that? And that was uncomfortable for me, Mike, but I did it. And I kept asking, and then I kept asking. And then she's like, okay, they didn't give you anything in 3 days. Follow up and ask them where that is. And I was like, I don't want to pester them. She goes, no, they made a promise to you. They think that your Kool-Aid is so awesome, yet you're not. And so she kept pushing me. Again, guys, when you have people in your corner who are advocating for you to take those progressive steps, I needed it as well. I've had coaches, I've had mentors, I've had masterminds, I've had accountability part. I have them all. I still have like 3 or 4 mentors that I talk to every week. I have my coach that I meet with. And then I get it from what I do because I have to be congruent with that. So I think it's up to each individual. But when you feel like you're being overwhelmed and you're stressed and you're not being respected, that's a great time to look at the delegation. And as far as who to delegate to, that's got to be each individual person's, set of standards. But don't just discount people because you don't think they can do it, because people can surprise you. And when you rewire yourself and sit there and say, okay, what would it take for me to be able to train this person to be able to do it in such a way that I can have respect for it and appreciate the result, right? You just got to think about those little steps in between. But again, go to Google, how to delegate. critical success tips for delegation. Go to ChatGPT. Give me 5 strategies for being able to delegate more effectively. Help me overcome the guilt of delegation. The answers are there. The answers are there. The YouTube, go to YouTube, the YouTube videos. That's what I do. I go to YouTube and I punch it in. I'll probably spend 3 or 4 hours. I'll look at the cons of something. I'll look at the pros of something. I'll look to see if there's similarity between people's opinions. I'll do my research and then I'll take my action. And then I'll go back and I'll evaluate.
That's all really, really good. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for thinking through it, Chris, because I know on these, like I've said before, it's organic conversation. So when we get to stuff, it's like, well, how does Chris do that? Like you innately have done that stuff as a leader in business, in your own business. And so I think it's awesome for you to be able to think through that and share that with everybody. One of the things that I heard you say as you were talking about delegating too, is it empowers other people. Like one of the things as leaders, we got to realize that if we're constantly taking on all of the stuff all of the time, you're inadvertently could be, not necessarily, but you're robbing that opportunity and that experience from somebody else.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
and so I think that's a really powerful thing that you shared was like, hey, you're empowering other people to do this. So as a leader, empower people. That's part of your job. So as we're coming to the tail end, we're just past the 45-minute mark. Chris, you and I could go on for like 2 more hours.
I got time. Ask me some more questions.
Well, one of the things I was going to ask is, what are some key characteristics? And I got two more questions as we're kind of coming to the tail end of this. One is for you, when you're looking for someone to follow, because people can look at Chris and go, well, he's the top of you're top of the mountain, right? You're the leader. People are looking to you for advice. People are looking to you. They're watching this podcast. What are some things you look for in somebody that you're willing to invest in for you to follow?
For me to follow, what am I looking for? Again, it goes back to what we talked about before, that congruency, that authenticity, right? For me, that's super important. Are they being congruent? My coach, Sally Anderson, she's phenomenal. I wouldn't coach with anybody else. She calls me on my bullshit. She asks me the hard questions. She makes me do the things I don't want to do. Even for me, the no excuses guy, because I need that as well. I'm pretty good, but I'm way better. And that's the thing we have to think about. I'm way better when I'm surrounded by the people who are doing those things, the people I respect, the people I give my word to. And so I'm looking for somebody who's trustworthy. I'm looking for somebody, when I go on their Facebook page, or their social media, that there are aspects about their personal life that they're sharing. It's not just all business. If it's all just business, then that tells me something that's a little bit different about them. For me, I have to have a personal conversation with somebody. I have to know that there's a synergy there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if I'm going to work with somebody, or if I'm going to follow somebody, that's super important. I get compared to Tony Robbins a ton. And I've never been to a Tony Robbins event. I've read Tony Robbins books. I haven't seen a Tony Robbins video or anything like that in many, many years, because I don't resonate with him anymore. I resonate with his message, but the person he is, who I've heard from people who know him, has changed my perspective about it. So I don't go to his events. I mean, I appreciate him and I respect him and he's a smart guy, but from what I know and from what I feel, that's not congruent with me. And when we do those things for ourselves and we make sure we align with people for the right reasons. Oh, you need to work with this guy. Oh, that guy's an asshole. I don't want to work with him. Like, don't work with him just because your friend told you to. If you don't feel like there's a synergy there, don't do it. Right? Make those decisions for yourself every single day. Is this good for me? Is this good for what it is that I'm doing? And have that delineation for yourself, and don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel shame if you sit there and say, no, I appreciate the offer, but I'm going to continue looking. Right? Because when you find it, it's like when you're shopping for a car, when you're going for a house or an apartment. I can count so many times in my life where I've been apartment shopping or house shopping, like this house we're living in right now. We looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses. We walked in this one, we both looked at each other and like, this is the one.
This is it.
So when you get with that person, the same thing happens. Like you and me, like you connect, you get fire. But if you're like, okay, and I've had people do this with me. They've hired me as a coach and they're like, okay, you're way too direct. I just can't. Okay, that's fine. That's totally cool. You need to go do what you need to do. Find the right person for you. And so that's super important. So I think for me, in following somebody, do they walk their talk? Do I have a synergy with them? Do I feel like I could get on with them in a personal situation? Have they shown the results and the validation and the proof? Right. So that's what it is for me. So that's what I do for myself is I'm Chris. I'm the same, like you said, I'm the same dude with you. I'm the same dude in my podcast. I'm the same dude in my family. I'm the same dude out and it's me. I'm just me. And if people dig it, cool. If not, it's no harm, no foul.
Well, and I think we attract what we are like, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something where you're saying, hey, authenticity, congruency, like you're congruent with who you say you are and who you actually are the same. And then one thing that you said, that one of my good friends first brought this to my attention on a podcast. I don't know, it was several podcasts ago, but I was interviewing with him and I was asking, hey, what are some characteristics of good leaders? And one of the first things that he said, because we always talk about stuff like authenticity, congruency, they have to have confidence, they have to lead from the front, they have to lead by example. We talk about all of these sort of ethereal things that are often intangible. And one of the things that he said, and you just said it, but you said it very quickly and you went on to some of the other things, but I want to hang on it, was you said it has to be somebody that gets results.
Yeah.
Like there have to be measurable results, people.
That's like a no-brainer, but yeah.
Well, it is. It's natural for you or I as we sit here and talk about it, but I think it's important, and I want to point that out on the podcast. Like, what measurable points has that person produced, right? If they're a sales manager, what sales have they produced? If they're a coach of people, what are the outcomes that those people are getting, right? Are they still in the same place that they were a year ago? Is the coach creating codependency, or are they trying to make somebody that is growing themselves and moving on? Dean Law over here on LinkedIn, this is maybe too long to show on the screen, but I think this is awesome. He says he had some comments from before about growing employees as well. So I'd encourage you, if you're over on the LinkedIn version of the podcast, check out what Dean has shared, because he has some really great information. But one of the where we're talking about qualities, he says remaining humble and honest are important qualities in personal and professional life. See, one of the things that I think people really need to realize, like leadership, first, we're leaders of ourselves, then we're leaders of our family and that circle that we're around, either the family by blood or the family we choose. And then we lead others. Then we lead businesses and departments and so forth. And he says, you can foster an environment on honesty, humility, and mutual respect. These qualities not only contribute to your personal development, but also positively impact relationships and interactions with others. And he says, Christopher is a real humble person.
Thank you, Dean.
And you are.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So Dean, thank you for sharing all that, because it just so valuable. So Chris, do me a favor, sort of kind of summing up, because we've covered a lot of stuff and all of it really good. And for anybody who is either watching the show later, if you're tuned in and listening to the podcast on any platform, I'm available on, Apple Podcasts and Google and iHeart and all of the places, please share this show, throw a thumbs up on it, and make sure, if you want to connect with Christopher Rausch, go to noexcusescoach.com. And I am telling you, for somebody that offers, and just, it is an immeasurable value, the things that I have gotten from you and the time that you and I have gotten to know each other.
Thank you.
And for, I'll say this for you, for before his prices go up, because he should increase them, he's got some really awesome programs. Go check out noexcusescoach.com and connect with him, because I promise you he's probably got a program for you. So Chris, any final thoughts to take us out on the show today, sir?
The final thoughts to take us out on the show. We talked about a lot of stuff, and thank you again, Mike, for having me on. I appreciate it. I knew this was going to be a lot of fun. My biggest thing that really has changed my life the most in all the things I've talked about today was when I went to a funeral back in 2008. And I want everybody to think about this. I went to a funeral in 2008. It was for one of my coworkers. She died of cancer, and I knew her, but I didn't know her. Right. You know what I mean? There to pay my respects, do my thing, always do that. I find that I learn at funerals, and this time I learned the most. And I was sitting in the back of the church and I was watching, and my buddy Dave Riley gets up there in his gray, I still remember, I get chills, his gray suit and a pink tie, and he gets up there and he just starts crying. He's like 6'2", he's like 260 pounds, just starts blubbering. Oh, because he worked directly with her. And he starts talking about all the beautiful things that she did. Oh, Ann did this, and Ann did this, and she always cared for these people. And it was just amazing. It was just amazing, guys. I was sitting there like, wow, what a powerful person she was. What a beautiful light she was. I didn't personally know her that much, but God, I wish I would have, because she was such a radiant person. And in that moment, guys, I sat there and I said, okay, let's switch this on me. If I died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? So think about this. I'm a man about questions. So if I died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And I thought 10 or 15 people would show up. They would bring Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, and whatever Rat Records and Miller Genuine Draft and Jack Daniels. And my friends would sit there and talk about all the stupid shit Chris did. Oh my God, remember that time he did this? Remember that time he passed out? Remember that time we stacked food on his head? Remember that time he did this girl? Remember this time this, that, whatever. Oh yeah. He was a 7th grade homeless dropout who wrote a book and changed the world. I did not want the postscript on my funeral, my eulogy, my legacy. I did not want it to be all about the stupid shit that I did. I wanted it to be really more about who I am now. And so I went home and I wrote my eulogy. And at that point, I literally set it down. I hand wrote it because I believe handwriting, wow. There's a commitment that there's a subconscious thing that happens, especially with you writing about yourself. And I wrote it out. I went, got a glass of water, came back, and I nearly just threw it to the side. All right, I'm on to the next thing. I did my little thing. I feel better. But I said, okay. And I started reading it. And then I stopped and I said, well, if this was a eulogy, if this was a funeral or whatever it might be, a celebration of life, I like to call it, somebody read it out loud. Okay. Here I am in my office all by myself, my glass of water. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to honor the life of Christopher Rausch. And it goes on and goes on. And I get halfway down the page, not expecting this whatsoever. I start crying. Not boohooing, but just I start having tears running down my face. And I'm like, why am I crying? I'm getting all choked up and I'm reading this. And I got to the part that said, Christopher Rausch will fought for what was right, what was fair. He risked for which that mattered. And he left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. Just tears, just going down. I'm like, I'm crying because I'm happy. I'm crying because everything in my life made sense. It made purpose. And so what I did after that is I set the intention every single day to live that legacy. Right? To use my words and my actions to make this world a better place, as I'm doing right now. If this is the last thing I ever do and my son comes and watches it, Dad was on point. He was doing the things that he said he wanted to do. He said he wanted to go out there and make this world a better place. I have a bigger why, I have a bigger how. So when I get in those situations where I had that fear, we talked about that fear earlier, I go back to my legacy. Is my legacy to be fearful? Is my legacy to be trepidatious? And my legacy to be, no, my legacy is to go out there and stand in the front and be that person that lives life and doesn't just exist in it. And that could be the same for you guys. Think about that legacy. Think about your why. Set the intention every day when you wake up in the morning. Say what you're grateful for and set the intention. The intention today, I'm going to use my words and my actions to make this world a better place. I'm going to be present and playful with my kids. I'm gonna. And as you're going throughout your day, am I living my legacy? Am I being congruent? No, I'm not. I'm talking bad about myself. Okay, what can I do in this moment to shift that? And that's the thing, guys. When you catch yourself in those moments, oh, I'm telling myself that I always screw things up and I never do things right. You know what, Shelly? You know what, Dave? That's not true. I don't always do that. Sometimes I do it. And perhaps maybe if I did a little research and studying and got a coach, maybe I wouldn't do it as much anymore and I'd feel better about myself. So you got to take that responsibility, but ultimately have that big vision for who you're going to become, because life is short, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you that. I'm Christopher Rausch.
Wow. Dude, I got the goosebumps when you're talking there. Like you're talking about that, and it was powerful. It is so powerful. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is true leadership, leading from the front, yourself first, laying it out there. So, man, so good. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for laying it all out there. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, your experiences, answering all the questions that I threw at you. Just absolutely phenomenal. I appreciate you. If you would do me a favor, hang out for just 1 minute. I'm going to go ahead and take us out, man.
You got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. So that, my friends, brings us to a close of another Leadership Toolkit. Thank you for your time. And I promise you, I know you had to have gotten some value out of this show. Just such a great conversation. Please do me a favor again, share the show, throw some thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed to the channel here on YouTube. Make sure I share this on my audio podcasts across every platform, whether it's Apple or iHeart or Spotify, you name it. And if we're not already connected, please connect with me. I'd love to connect with you more. And if you know a great leader in your life, maybe suggest that they come on the show. Thank you again to Christopher Rausch for sharing his wisdom and his insight. And make sure you can connect with him at noexcusescoach.com. Until next time, everybody, I hope you have a great week and be great. We'll talk to you soon.